Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
I had a battalion commander come to me and she said, "Dear God, we're killing our own soldiers."
We gathered today to honor the incredible service members.
We owe you our thanks. We owe you our respect. We owe you our freedom.
Just as we have gathered before to remember those who served, those who fought, and those who gave their last full measure of devotion for our country.
According to the Associated Press, the Pentagon is going to require vaccines for all service members.
I'm asking the Defense Department to look into how and when they will add COVID-19 to the list of vaccinations our armed forces must get.
The military was ordering service members to take a shot that they could not lawfully order them to take.
Are you choosing to be non-compliant? Get on the floor! Get on the floor!
Leaders did everything legal or illegal within their power to coerce and influence their service members to get the shot.
I'll never forget, I received a phone call from a mother whose son was a Marine at 29 Palms, and she told me her son and 9 other Marines were being held in confinement in the brig until they got vaccinated.
If you don't do what they tell you to do, they will ostracize you. They will destroy your life.
Stop resisting or you will get tased!
They threatened me with Leavenworth imprisonment. They banned me from all Army Public Health Center facilities for 413 days.
I counted over 140 days where I was put into isolation.
Once it becomes normalized in the military, it often very quickly finds its way into the civilian population, as we saw with the COVID mandate.
The effects extend well beyond just those in uniform, and the impact is really on the entire nation.
8,000 well-trained men and women were fired.
I lost my income. I lost my ability to feed my family.
I mean, I'm being told you're getting dishonorably discharged.
And if you get dishonorable, you lose everything. You can't get certain jobs as a civilian. It follows you for life.
You cannot mandate an experimental medical product. You cannot mandate that on military members.
In my entire medical career prior to this, I had never seen a young person with a stroke. I had never seen someone have a massive clot without provocation.
We were in great shape. We were doing very well. But then as soon after the vax is when my health went downhill.
When people celebrate all the freedoms that the military gets to grant this country, when the military's freedoms and really the country's freedoms are actually being taken away.
Why was the vaccine mandate unlawful? How come the Secretary of War is telling us that the vaccine mandate was unlawful?
We all know that the previous administration issued unlawful orders on mandatory vaccines on an experimental vaccine, COVID-19. You know it, we know it.
You are taught that you have a duty to disobey unlawful orders.
You know, they postulated that we're going to have back pay for members that were kicked out. They're inviting these warriors back into service.
And that was huge. And I was so happy to hear that. But that does nothing for the institution itself.
What I have understood from people in the military is that it has not been made easy and that it really still needs to be done on an individual basis.
We haven't stopped in 4 years when everybody was ignoring us, and we're not going to stop for another 4, 14, or 40 years.
We are at a critical juncture, and the soul of this nation is at stake.
When we talk about orders that are unlawful, now there is a duty to disobey.
afternoon, my friends. Welcome back to Truth Thursday on the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, you just saw the opening of that powerful video, Duty to Disobey. And right now, in 2026, that message is more urgent than ever. Good men and women in uniform and out are being ordered to violate their oaths, their faith, and the Constitution itself. Still today. From forced medical experiments on our service members to the political persecution of January 6 patriots, the weaponization of government has become the new norm. In the first half of the show today, I'm bringing on Army Chaplain James Link and his wife, Faye. They stared down the illegal orders, fought unconstitutional mandates, and paid a heavy price for it, especially with health. They're here to tell you exactly what it looks like when a patriot remembers his duty and says no. Then in the second half of the show, we'll be joined by constitutional warrior and former Trump administration official Jeff Clark, currently the vice president of litigation at the Oversight Project, our friends over there. We're going to unpack the latest massive victory, the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers sedition convictions proposed to be dismissed and vacated, and expose the continued lawfare we're seeing with the Weaponized Space Act and beyond. Did you know John Eastman, President Trump's attorney, just got disbarred by California for giving him advice? It's unbelievable. Well, folks, this isn't about left or right. It's about right and wrong. This is about remembering that every American still has a duty to stand against tyranny. Well, Chaplain Link and Faye, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Sir, for having us. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys reaching out to me and wanting to talk about this, especially the Duty to Disobey film. I wasn't aware that its timing was so soon. I knew it was out there somewhere. But first, James, tell us your story.
Yes, sir. I served as an Army chaplain for over 14 years. And in the Chaplain Corps, we have a long tradition of nurturing the living, caring for the wounded, and honoring the fallen. However, I received none of those when I was in my last deployment in Iraq in 2021, where I was threatened with court-martial. I had to take the COVID-19 vaccine under duress, and it destroyed my life, both physically and mentally.
Why were you threatened with court-martial? You're a chaplain.
Good thing. This came from my own chaplain corps. Chaplain Walls, the chief of chaplains at the time for the military, a lot of cowards in the Army. They hid behind their rank. They did not advocate for any of us who were trying to get exemptions for the vaccine. I tried to get exemptions. It was all denied. Myself and other chaplains were called into the battalion's office in Iraq, and we were threatened with court-martial and threatened with actual jail time if we did not take the vaccine. I tried to resist as long as I could, but I didn't want to go to jail. So reluctantly, I took the vaccine under duress. And shortly thereafter, my heart rate plunged to the 20s. I had to get emergency pacemaker surgery. After that, I've had a lot of severe physical issues, strokes, AFib, all these heart issues due to the J&J vaccine.
Yeah. Did you try a religious accommodation request?
I did, sir. I did several times. Mine was denied, as well as other chaplains who I was serving with in Iraq. We tried to get exemptions, and they were all denied, flat out. They didn't want to even hear us. And it's so saddening. It's also, I have a lot of righteous anger for the members of the Army Chaplain Corps who did not stand up for me and my other chaplains who were injured due to this vaccine. They just followed the orders that they were told, and they won't even have the guts to stand up for people like me.
Yeah, was the gentleman, the general that was just fired, was he in the chain of command in the Chaplain Corps then?
Yes, Major General, he called himself a chaplain, but he's really not a chaplain in my opinion. Chaplain Green, who was a friend of Lloyd Austin, and they wanted the vaccine, and they threatened all of us who didn't want to get it. And they hid behind their crosses, which I think is very, very cowardly. Very cowardly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're the first chaplain that I've had a chance to talk to from any of the services that tried the religious accommodation request as a chaplain. What did you think about the process that's required by the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, RFRA, that was passed after the anthrax vaccine debacle? What did you think about that process, James?
As a process that I was part of as a chaplain, I would help process religious accommodation requests, so I knew the system, I knew how to request it. But when it came to the vaccine, it was total hypocrisy, sir. Everything was just flat out denied, even though we had good reasons why we did not want to take it. It was not FDA approved. There were no good studies. It was dangerous. They just flat out denied them. And it was under duress that I took it. They threatened me with jail time, like I said. So it wasn't consent that I freely gave. It was under duress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of the people you see in the trailer I've interviewed on this show, and eventually the ones I haven't, the few I haven't, I will interview them. But I've had discussions with many of them, a lot of them, and folks that they know tried the religious accommodation request. And almost to a man and woman, they nearly all said that the first level in the chain of chaplains almost always agreed with it. Said it was a legitimate religious accommodation request. It was sincerely held beliefs and everything. But then later in the chain of command, it would be denied.
Absolutely.
Is that the way this law is supposed to work from a chaplain's perspective?
No, it shouldn't. I mean, we are there to advocate for the soldiers. I mean, General George Washington started the Chaplain Corps in 1775. He wanted ministers to advocate for soldiers. And when we tried to have that, when I was in Iraq in 2021, it was flat out denied. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So how's your health now, James?
It's been horrible. I've had to have cardiac ablation, a lot of heart issues, AFib. I have a pacemaker. I went from being perfectly healthy before the vaccine to now being 100% disabled. It's not the life that I wanted to have, but I do believe God kept me alive for a reason, and that reason is to bring awareness and to help others who don't have a voice. Because many of us, when I was in Iraq, many of us, our health was ruined by this vaccine, and the government just tried to cover it up. In fact, I want to relay some information that happened to me when I was in Iraq. After I received the vaccine and shortly thereafter, there were a lot of soldiers being declared as having suicides. They were just dying in their sleep. And as a chaplain, I thought that was kind of odd. Why would all these people be, dying in their sleep? Well, I found out later that it was the vaccine. But the military, the Army, called it suicides. So this goes to the cover-up, the lack of accountability. And that's why I did duty to disobey, sir, because I want accountability. I want awareness for what happened to me and thousands of other soldiers who had their lives ruined by this vaccine.
I hadn't heard that piece of information before about units in Iraq experiencing this and it being documented as suicides. Aren't there autopsies done when those bodies come back to the United States at Dover from a combat zone?
Yes, sir,
are those available for FOIA?
They should be. As a chaplain, I would have to do the bereavement. I would have to notify next of kin of the deaths. But I questioned this, of the uptick of suicides, people dying in their sleep. And I was told by my chaplain chain of command, let it go, Chaplain Lake. Don't talk about it. And of course, I was vocal because I'm here to help people. So I questioned it. Yeah. And because I questioned it, they really came after me. And I can explain that, what happened when I came back to the States. When I arrived at the Fort Bragg Soldier Recovery Unit, that's when the real hell began in my life.
We got about a minute. Got about a minute before the break. Go ahead.
When I arrived at the Soldier Recovery Unit after my deployment, they put me in the Soldier Recovery Unit because I had all these heart issues. As soon as I arrived, the chain of command and the SRU said that all this was in my head. I just had anxiety. The vaccine could not cause my heart issues. So they tried to blame it on everything else except the vaccine. So myself and several other soldiers who were in the SRU, we were just told, this is not the vaccine, this must be some pre-existing issue you had. And that was the verbatim words they were using in the military.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we got you for one more segment. We'll see a clip from the chaplain talking about a letter he sent to Secretary of War Hegseth. And this fight's still ongoing, and we'll hear from Faye, his wife, and her perspective on the experience they've had ever since his time in Iraq. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show.
Sir, I am writing to you as a concerned citizen and an advocate and demand immediate action regarding the ongoing administration's COVID-19 vaccinations within the Department of War. Sir, my concerns stem from the Freedom of Information Act recently released to the public, FO1A-26-00201, to the Defense Health Agency concerning over 430,000 administered vaccines in 2025. As Secretary of War, sir, you have the authority to stop allowing these harmful vaccines from being injected into our service members, veterans, and their families. As a member of the public and a medically retired Army chaplain, I demand, sir, that these vaccines and any mRNA products be removed and from all facilities within your authority. During my deployment in June of 2021, I received 1 dose of the COVID vaccine in Erbil base. Shortly after receiving the vaccine, I began to feel very weak and struggled to get out of bed. I did have access to a vehicle and was taken to the clinic. Once I got to the clinic and ran a few tests on my heart rate, it was very low and in the 20s. Then I was taken to the Hadi clinic where I had an emergency pacemaker surgery. Just like that, my career was over. I flew back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I started the med board process. That's where my hell really began. My amazing wife was able to get Senator Marco Rubio to help me, and I was able to receive what I was deserving, an honorable discharge. I now live with a pacemaker, AFib, hypertension, POTS, COPD, asthma, and many more. Sir, please stop the COVID vaccine for military and civilians. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. Today we're talking about it's our duty as Americans to stand up to things like weaponization of the government and this COVID-19 vaccine mandate, especially inside the Department of the Department of Defense and now Department of War, is a big part of that weaponization because it bleeds over into the civilian life. The civilian mandates that cost people their jobs and all kinds of other horrendous things stemmed right out of this military mandate, which was an illegal order. And my guest today is that man and his wife, Chaplain James Lincoln, his wife Faye. And Chaplain, do you mind saying how old you were when you got that shot?
Sir, I was 46 years old when I received the shot. I'm now 51.
You were how old?
I was 46 when I received the
26.
shot, and I'm now 51 years old. 51.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
20. Men in their 20s, as we've seen, heart problems, strokes, myocarditis, those kinds of issues. Dr. Teresa Long's in the documentary and the lead off of the trailer and a couple other spots in the trailer. And she is the flight surgeon that started identifying this stuff first. And you said when you got home, your hell really began, and that Faye, you had to help him get an honorable discharge. Why did you have to do that, Faye?
Because they attacked us on all fronts. Legally, they put a 15-6 against him. And at first, I was like, what's a 15-6? And we didn't even know. And just like that, we understood that we needed to get a lawyer and to protect ourselves because they were going to do everything they could to discredit and ruin my husband's career. And that's just the beginning of it. I mean, we did get Senator Rubio, thank God he intervened and helped us. Because even with a lawyer, and we had a good lawyer, we were being stonewalled by the military. They took him off orders for a while just to be mean, just to mess everything up. His records were incorrect. They changed his medical records. I mean, it was just horrible.
They tried to say I was a smoker. I was a smoker for over 20 years, and I've never smoked in my life. But again, they were trying to do everything they could in the medical record to blame my injuries on anything except the vaccine. So that's what they were doing, trying to blame any kind of thing they could on me.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the medical community these days?
I don't trust them. There are a few good ones, of course, but I'm very skeptical, sir. especially the military, because they're told to do things. The doctors are told to sign off or not sign off on things. So there's a lack of integrity with the medical community, especially at Fort Bragg. They treated me like hell when I was at the Soldier Recovery Unit. It was just a constant fight. And it wasn't just to me, it was to other soldiers too. They threw us all under the bus. When we tried to say we had vaccine injuries, they did not want to pay for it. They did not want to cover anything. It was a fight. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Has that improved the service connection? Yeah.
No, sir. There's still. I was at the VA actually today to get some medicine refill, and they're like, "Oh, so how'd you get your injuries?" I said, "Through the vaccine." There was just dead silence, crickets. They're all told to do a certain thing. They get the memorandums to be quiet because it's a huge liability. It's all about money, right? If they ever admitted this, it would be a huge lawsuit. So it's all about money, and the government's been lying to people for years, right? For hundreds of years. They lied about the Native Americans taking their land, and now they just lie. They're used to lying. You're dealing with a bunch of sociopaths, and it's hard when the chaplain corps, they just sit around and are cowards and are just sheep, little sheep. That's all they are, sheep. They don't stand up for anything, and that's what I'm sick and tired of. But God needs a lion, and I'm the lion. There's enough sheep out there. We need lions.
Yeah, I appreciate you standing up. So let's talk about the documentary, Duty to Disobey. Now, there's a big discussion about disobeying orders these days because of what the seditious six politicians did, trying to imply that the current president was giving illegal orders, which he's not, and to get young men and women in harm's way to think about disobeying them. This is different, though, right?
This is a completely different thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, so tell us about the documentary, and you guys have been instrumental in producing it, right?
Yes.
The documentary, it just gives light to what the military personnel have had to go through if they refuse to be what they call compliant, or any resistance against the vaccine. They will come after you. And this is eye-opening and it's still what is going on in the military. It's not all perfect just because Trump is in office. I mean, it's still a mess, and there's still people fighting. And we talk to people every day that are being med-boarded and being treated the same way as James, especially more so the officers. I really just felt like they wanted to make an example of him and didn't care what they did to him. I really just feel like they were trying to break him to commit suicide while we were at Bragg because they treated us so poorly. And when I stepped in, he didn't even have food in his room, nothing. I mean, he wasn't being taken care of. And this is kind of universal with all the SRUs we've kind of found across the United States. They're not too good. And
they will isolate you. They will try to get you to go, crazy.
But more about the Duty to Disobey. It's a documentary, and it's multiple military members that have been either mistreated or were kind of like whistleblowers per se, and just trying to bring awareness to the treatment of the military.
Yeah, when's it going to be released, Faye? Do you know exactly? And how is it going to be in theaters or?
June 30th, it will be released, and it will be in theaters. You have to just check your local listings. And we also have, of course, on the website for Duty to Disobey, the website, you can also see other location sites where the movie will be premiering.
Okay. And I assume buy tickets?
Yeah, you can buy tickets. We will be attending the premiere in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio. A group of us are going to be going up there that are in the documentary, and we just want to say thank you to all our friends, and thank you, Colonel Maness, for this privilege.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Well, it's very important. We've got to figure out how to get this right, and the outside voices like yours they are being listened to by folks in the Trump administration that have been appointed to actually look at this issue and try to rectify what has happened. It's slow going, though. I think they would be the first to tell us that it's slow going and there's still bureaucratic resistance and everything. I do have one more question before I let you go, though, Chaplain, is what is a 15-6 and why did they try it?
15-6 It's kind of a blanket investigation where they don't really need any kind of proof, abundance of evidence. They can just do blanket charges. And for my particular case, since I was so vocal against the vaccine, especially at the SRU, when I started saying, look, my friends and I here at the SRU, we are truly injured because of the vaccine. They just said no, and they put an investigation of me. And they tried to say that I had all these pre-existing issues, that I was a smoker, I had heart issues before I went in the military. And of course, that's not true because I passed my pre-deployment. I've been in the military for 14 years. I always passed everything, my PT test. But again, their job was to try to do anything they could to get the attention off the vaccine and onto something else. And that's what they did. It's a blanket investigation. So we had to get Senator Rubio at the time, who got that taken care of and discharged. So I was able to get the honorable discharge I deserved.
Besides the letter you sent to Secretary Hegseth about stopping the vaccine itself, from your perspective, what should accountability inside the current Department of War and the services look like so that the force can get healthy again and move forward without feeling like they're under threat from the same people that executed this unlawful?
Really, we need transparency, accountability, in the sense that the soldiers, the service members will know and have peace of mind that they're not going to be threatened or gaslighted or any kind of threats to take a particular vaccine. They need to have clear consent. And that was the issue, sir. There was no clear consent when I was in Iraq. They were threatening all of us. If you don't take this, we are going to do UCMJ against you. They told us that. So we're just tired of the threats. We want to be treated with respect. I'm not against all vaccines. Some of them were great, but it was just the way they did this one by threats is what really bothered me. And when I spoke out against it, I was labeled as a troublemaker, and that's why they did the 15-6 against me, because I was so vocal, and they didn't like that. So if you speak out, they're going to try to get rid of you.
Yeah, even though you took the vaccine ultimately while you were in the combat zone, which followed the order and everything, they still went after you because you were insistent on identifying these adverse reactions and making it public, right?
Sir, and they actually told me, Chaplain Link, let this go. My chain of command told me that, let this go. And I'm like, no, you're covering up all this stuff. And because I was so vocal, they came after me.
Oh, wow. Well, your chain of command should be held accountable, and we're asking for accountability across the board on this, because the same people that unlawfully executed this order can't be the same people that bring people back in and agree to restore folks because they don't want to. That's why one of the reasons why it's going so slow. We've got about 30 seconds left, guys. Tell folks where they can find you and the movie again. And thank you very much for joining us today, and let me put your story out there.
We'll put it in the notes as well, but it's Duty to Disobey. If you Google that, you can find the main website, and just go to the website and you can see all the localized listings. And we also have it posted on Facebook and X and other platforms where you can just click on, see the trailer, and then it also has a link where you can still buy movie tickets as well.
Well, thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you both for your service. We appreciate you, and stay well.
Thank you, sir.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Justice.
they do have great discretion in the terms of what they're able to do and bring and not bring. They'd already secured convictions, I should add, and sentencing as well. Is a judge going to go along with this move?
Pretty much clears the record of the remaining people whose records aren't fully cleared by the pardon. It's hard to imagine an unopposed motion like this one being stopped by a judge. But two things jump out at me. First of all, are we to pretend we didn't just watch all that on television on January 6th? Did we not all see what happened at the Capitol? These vacating of convictions, these pardons are communicating to the American people, do not believe your lying eyes. We saw it. It's also uniquely re-traumatizing to the victims. 140 plus police officers were injured that day. Their families watched it on TV too. They have a difficult time watching all this unfold with pardons and with vacated convictions. And Mike Gordon didn't just prosecute January 6 cases. He did so masterfully. So did his colleagues. The jurors of the District of Columbia said these people were guilty.
Truth Thursday, and we're talking about the truth about weaponization today and how it's our duty to stand up against it as Americans. And that guy right there, McFarland, he's the biggest advocate of weaponizing the government against citizens that mostly did nothing more than walk a few seconds inside the United States Capitol building. And he should be sent to prison for 5 or 6 years to pay for his overzealous and over-the-top commentary that has egged this stuff on all this time. Well, my second guest today is Attorney Jeff Clark, former Trump administration official in both Trump administrations and current VP of Vice President of Litigation at the Oversight Project. Jeff's agreed to come be with us for a few minutes to talk about this legal issue and some other things that are going on and making the news the last day or two. Jeff, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, sir. It's been too long.
Hello, Colonel Rob. Good to see you, and always good to see you and join your show.
Thank you. I know you're a very busy guy, so let's jump right into it. What does this motion to dismiss and vacate actually mean in reality? I know there's a lot of celebration going on, including me. I'm very glad this has happened. But what are the processes and procedures that's going to make this outcome become a reality for everybody?
Sure. Look, I think that Scott McFarland is right to suggest that the judge is probably going to grant that motion, and then that ends the case, and there's no need for any appeal, and no one would have standing, even though he mentions police officers, including ones that were injured from the Capitol Police. They wouldn't have standing to come in and try to fight about that. Now, let me contrast that with the view of a former prosecutor, federal prosecutor in D.C., this guy, Glenn Kirshner, who I follow all of his stuff. McFarland just joined the Midas Network, and those guys are like truly out there. There are certain members of the Journal Lawfare Mafia, trademark as I call them. But Kirshner, he still has his own YouTube show called Justice Matters. And today I saw him arguing that the judge should deny the motion after he puts Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. attorney, on the witness stand to say, you say that it's in the interests of justice that this case be dismissed, that where the jury found that they were guilty of seditious conspiracy, and you say that it's in the interests of justice. Why do you think it's in the interest of justice? And then the judge would conduct an examination of her, even though this is an unopposed motion. I don't see that happening. I think that guy's delusional. And I think that it just shows you how far these people have fallen, that there's no respect for an adversary process. And we have a new president, right? Since the convictions were had. And that new president doesn't believe in these convictions, and his Justice Department doesn't believe in those convictions, and they're moving to drop them. And it's, not for the judges to make doing that difficult. It's just a basic exercise of prosecutorial discretion, Rob.
Yeah. So could another president next time overturn this? No?
No. The double jeopardy is already attached because you got a jury verdict. And so, I don't see that they could return to this. Never say never. And who knows, maybe there was the judge who had the Michael Flynn case, who tried to appoint somebody else to look at whether that case could be dropped. Maybe they'd try to do something like that again, just to make it more difficult. But I don't think the DC Circuit really, that's the Court of Appeals that sits above the trial court for cases, the cases we're talking about from January 6th. I don't think they really, even the Democrat appointed judges on that court, really going to have a lot of patience with that. It's just so extraordinary. So anyway, I think that we're just now on a time clock down, a time countdown to when those cases get dismissed.
Yeah, how long does that usually take once this triggers?
I mean, I'd be surprised if it took more than a month, but it could take even shorter. And it all depends on what else the judge has on their docket. And, you know, they've already been let out of prison and, you know, their sentence is commuted. Now, someone like Joe Biggs, who's one of the people that we're talking about, right, because of the conviction, he lost his veterans benefits and was having an incredibly hard time finding a job. So it's not like delay is harmless, but, you know, since the people are not in jail, I, you know, wouldn't be surprised if the judge or judges who had jurisdiction of the case don't think it's the world's most urgent thing. I don't think they're going to let a lot of moss grow on it either, Rob.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a smart idea, especially when you have a guy like my friend Joe Biggs. You know, what are your thoughts on the punishment that was applied to a man like that in this case? I mean, I can see why Judge Jeanine could easily say with a straight face, "This is in the interest of justice. Drop this stuff because of the way these guys have been treated."
Absolutely. Look, we're talking about a decorated war hero. I believe he was a master sergeant, right? Which is not the easiest thing for, you know, an enlisted man to achieve, right? And, you know, he'd been celebrated for his service and his heroism. And to leave somebody like that in that position, you know, and treat them like they're, you know, a common criminal or really scheming against the United States, I think it's just unconscionable. So compare it to what Scott McFarlane was saying in that clip you played, right? He's like, well, you know, they're trying to expunge these things. They're trying to tell the American people, don't believe your lying eyes. But the thing is that a lot of things happened off camera, both before the entire incident unfolded and then afterwards, and lots of information we've gotten since then. I think the whole trial process against them was unfair for various reasons, you know, including that a lot of people got scooped up by, you know, a mass warrant that was granted that I think violated the Fourth Amendment. And what we didn't see, by way of comparison, is did we see extensive footage of all of the violence that was done in the so-called Summer of Love in 2020, the Antifa rioting, the Black Lives Matter rioting in DC? The media just didn't cover it the same way. If they covered it the same way, then Scott McFarlane would not be scratching his head so much about the fact that those people largely got off with, you know, entirely got off, weren't even picked up, or two, they got off with slaps on the wrist, or three, they got off with, you know, a reversal of anything that was brought against them and payment of, you know, civil damages, right? So, you know, the idea that you know, a few-hour incident on one day, when we now know that the whole area was shot through with federal agents of one kind or another, whether they were direct federal agents, whether they were contractors, whether they were contractors of contractors. There were a lot of, or confidential human sources that the FBI was paying. There were a lot of people who, in the broadest sense of agency law, were agents of the federal government because they were taking money for a task. You know, and that's clearly a relevant fact. I think it was, in many ways, a setup. There are a lot of people who didn't go inside, and they still got harassed. You know, like Mr. Caldwell, I'm remembering. You know, and occasionally his wife Sharon, you know, kind of tweets at me to remind me how terribly they treated him. And then there were people who were let inside, right? There are suspicious characters who broke the windows, and then, you know, others, you know, unwisely probably came in behind them. But to me, to compare that when there was a lot of discontent about the 2020 election, and this is what First Amendment protests are for, to compare that to the rabble rousing and just, I think, organized operation that January 6th was. I think it's apples and oranges, but not in the direction that Scott McFarland thinks.
Oh, I completely agree with you. Does this change the potential for families like Matthew Perna, who committed suicide over an upcharge thing for a claim against the United States government, or an individual that was operating inside the government at this point, or Ashley Babbitt's further claims from the Ashley Babbitt family? I think they've already had one claim settled, but does this change those kind of situations at all?
I think it's certainly directionally helpful, right? As long as there remain people who have, legal records to expunge, or, prison time, that can be pointed to, those inside the Justice Department who don't want to pay such claims when the administrative process is brought to them for exhaustion. Because the way it works is you can sue the federal government, but you're supposed to first, file administratively and see if you can reach a voluntary settlement under the Federal Tort Claims Act. And so, there would inherently be people, and, some of them, I think they just probably hate the J6ers and people they view as that ilk, and they would fight, not to see payments go out. They'd resist the settlements, et cetera. But there are some people, having run those people in the torts branch of the civil division, as the second hat I put on in Trump 45 at the Justice Department, after I was Senate confirmed. The people who run the torts branch, right? Like, they're looking to protect the Fed's, the fisc's pocketbook, really is what they're assigned to do. On the other hand, if they think they're going to lose, or if they think that, justice pulls, in favor of the claim that's filed, like, then they will open up the purse strings. And here, I think, as long as they can point to things that are negatives for the J6ers kind of as a class, there's probably more resistance in the torts branch to getting those claims settled. But look, I mean, the main thing is the people, the career lawyers in the torts branch are not in charge of the Justice Department, right? They can give their views, they help process things. It goes all the way to the top, right? It goes, in the first instance to, to the Associate Attorney General, who's the number 3, to the Deputy Attorney General, the number 2. At the moment, we have the Deputy acting as the Attorney General, right? Otherwise, we'd have 3 people. And then ultimately to the President, right? There's nothing wrong with the President saying, Attorney General, Acting Attorney General, I want you to settle those claims. These people were wronged. And, maybe I'll give you some leeway as to how generously you settle, but I want those claims settled. That's fully within the power of the President. And I think, that there's an important need for justice here in order to send the signal that this kind of weaponization in the future will not be tolerated.
Yeah, and I think the historical record's got to be corrected, and the only way to do that is through an official record of the changes. Well, Jeff, we got to take a break. You're going to stay with us for one more segment. I hope. I still got you.
Sure.
But I want to talk about the judges, John Eastman, the FACE Act. We'll see a clip from Harmeet Dillon about the FACE Act prosecutions, and the accountability that we might see with Jeff Clark. We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
Welcome back. The Department of Justice releasing a bombshell report on the weaponization of government. It claims the Biden Justice Department, led by former Attorney General Merrick Garland, weaponized the law to target pro-life defendants and tried to give them longer prison sentences. And that includes the case of pro-life activist Mark Houck. The father of 7 was charged with obstructing access to an abortion clinic. A SWAT team of more than a dozen people raided his home, arresting him in front of his children. He faced up to 11 years in prison. A jury later acquitted him. You'll remember we covered this story, and here he is on America's Newsroom after that.
Look, I'm a pro-lifer, and I've been a pro-lifer. I've been an activist for 20 plus years, and we all know what happened. But the federal government did come after me with the full force of the law, and raided my home on September 23rd as a response to that. And here we are, 4 months after that raid, vindicated, hopefully, with no issue with appeal.
And we remember that well. Well, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is with us here. Thank you so much for being here.
Morning.
I want to put a couple statistics here. Average 26.8 months for pro-life defendants versus 12.3 months for pro-abortion offenders. And this from a Biden official, former Biden official, saying the Civil Rights Division brought law enforcement leaders, crisis pregnancy center representatives, faith leaders, and reproductive health care staff together to address the real violence, threats of violence, and obstruction that too many people face in our country when it comes to reproductive health care. We enforce the law even-handedly and put public safety at the center of this work. I imagine you disagree with that.
I do, and I disagree not because it's just my opinion. I disagree because of the work that we did over the past year at the department, understanding what happened that led to these completely inappropriate results. And prosecutors have a big say in sentencings in the federal system. The judge ultimately imposes sentence, but what we saw is prosecutors arguing for really harsh sentences, inconsistent with what they should have been doing and inconsistent with what they were arguing when it was exactly the opposite. And we saw internal emails, internal correspondence, which is now part of the report, where Department of Justice prosecutors are working hand in hand with NGOs and nonprofits to target and go after pro-life individuals who were not breaking the law. Okay, and I'll tell you what, there's no emails in my inbox from NGOs telling me what to do, and it's disappointing. And
welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Truth Thursday, and we're talking about our duty to confront weaponization of government, and the SPACE Act sentencing and prosecutions is an exact reason why we should do that. Everyday citizens, because they believed in the sanctity of life from conception, most of them, until natural death, were prosecuted vehemently by the federal government. My guest today is Vice President of Litigation at the Oversight Project and former two-term Trump administration official Jeff Clark. Jeff, the over-sentencing requests with the prosecutors, it makes me wonder, listening to Todd Blanche talk about the emails and everything, where's the email traffic from cases like the January 6 cases, where we know that was at least the public-facing piece of it, it looked like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right, Rob, to call for a January 6th weaponization equivalent to the report about how the FACE Act was weaponized. That's just, basic parity, right? And parity of reasoning and carrying things over. If you could do it for that category of people who got wronged, Mark Houck's family. I happened to sit next to them at a event in New York and get to know them a little bit. I mean, like, wonderful husband and wife. I think what they've been put through just because of the fact that they don't believe in abortion, and they have a right to protest it using the First Amendment. And then also, you have a right to help defend your son, which is what led to the altercation. That's right. From an adult giving them harm, right? So anyway, the whole thing was blown out of proportion, total tempest in a teapot, totally stupid prosecution. And I'm glad that I'm from Philadelphia, Rob. My fellow Philadelphians saw through that and said, like, no, this guy's not guilty of anything. Look, I happened to spot in that clip you played of Todd Blanche on Fox that the quotation about, oh, we're oh so even-handed here in the Biden DOJ was from Kristen Clark, who was the Assistant Attorney General of the Civil Rights Division during the relevant time period. I mean, this is a lady, it's just such hypocrisy. This is a lady who stabbed her husband and then was asked questions that should have led to her admitting to that, but she lied about it. She perjured herself to the Senate in order to get confirmed, and she was allowed to stay in office. And then she's the one who's like, oh, we're so we're so honest here. We're so we're like Caesar's wife over here at the Justice Department under Biden. I mean, it's ridiculous. They clearly disproportionately went after pro-life protesters, and they did not go after people who did terrible incidents of violence and property destruction at crisis pregnancy centers, where often faith-based people will try to persuade women who come in that they really don't want to engage in the act of abortion. And the other thing that the FACE Act protects, and this was the compromise in order to get it through, is it protects people in their worshiping rights, right? And this is why there's a prosecution going on against the people in Minnesota who broke into the church, kind of led by ostensible reporter Don Lemon. That's part of the FACE Act too. And look, I think the whole statute came on the scene in the 90s when I was in law school. And my leftist law professors in the constitutional area, they just loved the statute because they were big fans of abortion. And my reaction to it was, this is in many ways a kind of, especially as applied to abortion protesters. I think it's different for protecting churches, because I think churches are part of the First Amendment, right? The religion clause is part of the First Amendment. But I think if there's someone who has a religious objection to abortion, and they want to stand on a street corner across from an abortion clinic and pray and protest, this is the First Amendment, and so therefore the FACE Act is applied to them as a walking, talking violation of the First Amendment.
Yeah, it sure is. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but you're exactly right. I agree. The on the sentencing stuff, Jeff, look, I'm just a layman, but I was responsible for meting out justice under the Uniform Code of Military Justice as a senior commander. So I think I understand what the role of a judge is supposed to be. Aren't they supposed to prevent this over sentencing instead of acquiesce to the request?
Yeah. I think the judges in the District of Columbia who were part of those prosecutions, they became advocates themselves. You had problems at the start of the process, especially under Chief Judge Beryl Howell, because under the way the DC local rules work, the entire grand jury process is supervised by the chief judge. So that's an immense amount of power. So a lot of fights in the grand jury that could have gone the other way, a lot of special procedures he set up that looked like they were special procedures to kind of railroad J6ers. Then you come to the trial and it gets farmed out to the individual judges, one judge per defendant for the most part. Some were grouped, but the judges, they all, with one exception, bought the theory the government was pressing to get the most leverage to either get a plea agreement or to get a huge sentence passed, which was under 18 U.S.C. 1512C2, the obstruction of an official proceeding. And the obstruction of official proceeding was just not intended to be about a First Amendment protest related to an election. It was about things like destroying documents. And so ultimately, that's what the Supreme Court said, and it rejected the 1512 theory, leaving on the face of all the prosecutors and of all the judges who affirmed that as a viable theory. The only judge who resisted that theory, and it goes down, I think, to his credit in the history books, is Judge Carl Nichols on the DC District Court.
Yeah, absolutely. But it just the accountability on the judge side seems to be lacking, and the whole legal profession. And this is where when I think about John Eastman, I think about you. The bar associations have gone after you guys. They've now disbarred John Eastman simply for, and I've read a lot of the documents about both of you guys, but in his case, essentially for giving legal advice to the president of the United States, who he was a lawyer for. That is crazy.
Yeah.
And the whole legal profession, including the judges and the bar associations, seems to have been turned upside down into a political axe grinding agent.
It is completely. I got my tweet in defense of John Eastman yesterday went viral. Had like more than 500,000 views and 11,000 likes the last time I checked, and so that caused the Democrats clearly to whip up their bots. So the bots started throwing crap at me, and it's a lot of ad hominem attacks and cursing and things like that. But the only halfway decent guy they came up with was some lawyer. To say that, well, the problem here is that John Eastman lied to his own client, the president of the United States, and you just can't do that. And, if you think about that for a second, was President Trump referring John Eastman to the California bar? No. Was President Trump complaining about the representation he got? No. They've weaponized the system so that third parties who have nothing to do with any given case, and all they're doing is essentially initially reading media reports, they can come in and file complaints, and then the bar authorities will start investigating and digging and finding political enemies who might want to come in and testify against you. And in California, I don't know if this was an issue in John's case. I don't remember it ever being particularly raised, but it was an issue in my case because it turned out that for years and years, the DC disciplinary authorities had a rule that they would not process any complaints that were filed by people who did not have firsthand knowledge. So typically, right, like a complaint against the lawyer is filed by someone who's a disgruntled client, right? Like the lawyer blows a deadline and then, they say, I lost my cause of action because my lawyer was bad. And then they file a complaint and then it's investigated, et cetera. Like, no, they're just leaving this in a world of third-party groups like the 65 Project to come in and complain like they did against John Eastman in the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court got rid of that. But in D.C., once I raised the issue of the president never complained about my legal advice. What did they do? They ultimately changed their rules, and they said that it can be anyone. Anyone can complain. And they can start sua sponte, which means they can just do it on their own, even if no one complains. And that rule did not become effective until like February of 2023, when they brought charges against me of June of 2022. So in other words, they were changing the law retroactively to fit the fact that they'd already decided to go after me, which is just a huge legal no-no. But it shows like that's how the whole process has been weaponized. It's not based on you having a lawyer who did something wrong and then you bring that to their attention and then they investigate it. Like, no, this is like Inspector Javert stuff. This is, Soviet Union's Beria, where they're looking for a crime on somebody. And the real initial crime in the minds of the Democrats who are running these bar apparatuses is that you're a Republican close to President Trump. That's the offense. And then they have to find how to reverse engineer it into some kind of ethics complaint.
That's called the Soviet show trial with a Soviet prosecutor, Jeff. Thank you very much for coming on today. Got about a minute left. What's Oversight Project up to from a litigation perspective before I let you go, and where can folks find you?
So you can find us at itsyourgov.com. .org. Itsyourgov.org. You can follow the Oversight Project on my X account as well, Jeff Clark US. And we're up to some election integrity cases. We have the big mass deportation playbook out explaining how President Trump and the administration can deport 1 million people this year, Rob.
Oh, outstanding. I can't wait to talk to somebody about that and publicize that to the American people, because that's the number one issue, I think.
Yep. I'll be happy to come back on and talk about the mass deportation playbook.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Jeff Clark, Oversight Project. Monday is More War Monday. We're going to talk to an expert on the cyber war that's going on inside the kinetic and diplomatic war over in the Middle East. I'll see you then.